Hey, y'all. I know I've been missing in action. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Livingstone's podcast. My name is Amoya Rowe, and this is Livingstone's podcast where we love Jesus Christ and read the Bible. I said I was missing in action because I really was missing in action. Y'all, when I tell you life has been lifing, life has definitely been lifing. But here I am. You know what? Let me just get into it just a little bit. I just want to. So I've been having some challenges in my health, and I'm not in a posture where I am praying for healing or anything like that. And it goes back to that. You remember that very first time that I started this space, and I said it's something about radical faith. When you have that thing in you, I don't know. This is gonna sound crazy. Some people are gonna get it, and other people just won't get it. And I'm okay with that. But there's something within me that I don't pray for healing at this point in my life. I'm not praying for healing because I believe that I'm already healed. What I'm praying for is really for myself not to grow weary and for myself not to grow tired and not to get exhausted and not to lose my faith. Isn't that crazy? So as I'm experiencing some challenges right now in my health, and I believe that I am healed. In the spirit, I know that I am healed because I know that heaven has an abundance of whatever it is that I need. So maybe that's a word for you. Maybe you need to hear that. If you're sick in your body, if something's wrong with your is going on with your heart, you through faith, by faith, you are able to tap into the abundance that is in heaven. Okay, so purchase yourself a new heart by faith that comes from heaven. If you need new lungs, purchase it by faith in heaven. You know what I mean? And so I've been missing in action because before I can dive into anything else, this is something I'm still working on. I need time to tell or to convince my flesh that you're going to do what I told you to do. I told you that you're healed, so I need you to do what I told you to do. Having a whole conversation with the assembly of myself. Um, and so I took the time to kind of get my mind right. I needed to get my mind right. I needed to get back in the right posture. Um, and I said, isn't it funny how as soon as I'm like really getting into the groove of everything, we bought the microphone, we got, a whole little setup going on now. I feel like locked and loaded and prepared. Then boom, all of a sudden, here goes something. I'm like, that ain't. Listen, I know your schemes. There ain't nothing gonna stop me, honey. You were way too late. So I just want to encourage you if you are needing healing. First of all, you are already healed by the stripes of Jesus Christ. You are healed. Your Father loves you. He cares about you. He is mindful of you. He is constantly thinking of you. He knows what you need. Before you can even gather the thoughts in your mind, He knew what you needed. And I believe that you already have access to it. So until your flesh catches up with what saith the Lord, I'm standing in agreement with you for your healing, but I believe that it is already there. So we're standing in agreement waiting for it to manifest in the flesh. But I believe that throughout your spirit and across every realm and dimension, you are already healed in Jesus' name. Amen. So let's jump into it. Grab your Bible. You've had plenty of time to read, so you should know everything at this point. We are, you know what? I'm going to go through 11 today. I think the last time that we spoke, we stopped at chapter 10. We're going to go through 11, and guess what? After 11, well, 11 is when we get like the first introduction of Abram before he became Abraham. So we're going to finish 11 today. We'll start and finish 11. And I might actually put out 11, 12, and 13 because I did all of my notes. So even while I wasn't here, I wasn't recording, but I was still doing my notes. And so I did 11, 12, and 13. And yeah, let's get into it. Go grab your Bibles. I'm going to give you a few seconds, okay? And then we will get started. And yeah, let's meet the father of the nations. Let's meet Abraham. All right. Cut it out. So we are talking about chapter 11 of Genesis today, and the focus is on the Tower of Babel. So at this point, we know that in chapter 10, we're talking about the nations that came from Noah, right? And we were talking about how Nimrod, we got to meet Nimrod, who came from Cush. And we learned how Nimrod was the mighty hunter or the mighty warrior before the Lord. And we talked about the Canaanites and how all of those different family groups came from them: the Jebusite, Amorite, Girgashite, Hivite, Archite, Sinite, Arvadite, the whole of the ites. We talked about how the Canaanites, there was such a big family group that came from them. What else did we talk about? We talked about Eber. When it said in verse 25, to Eber were born two sons. The name of one was Peleg, for in his days the earth was divided. And we talked about what could possibly be the thing that was dividing the earth, right? And then we talked about the families, the last verse 32 that said, these were the families of the sons of Noah according to their generations in their nations, and from their nations were divided. And we talked about how there's no mention of race, there's no mention of none of that. We talked about the importance of family and how God will empower you to create your own family. Um, so we talked about some good stuff. We talked about social connections and social constructs. And now here we are at this point getting ready to see Babel. So we know that there are different family groups that are all across the island. They're dispersed all island. Did I just say island? What island? Across the earth. We know that there is a whole bunch of family groups across the earth, and they're dispersed across the earth. And so here comes the Tower of Babel. You know how I feel about verse 1. It says, now the whole earth had one language and one speech. Stop right there. So in chapter 10, we talked about how the nations were divided by language. The people were divided by nation, language, and generations. In verse 5 from chapter 10, it said families, but I feel like you could kind of interchange families with generations, right? I don't know. Tell me what you think. But for the case of argument, we're going to say that it can. And so here in chapter 11, we're hearing that now the whole earth had one language and one speech. Well, that for me reminds me of unity. It kind of reminds me that everyone is on one accord. But here's the thing. It never said that if it's a good accord or a bad accord. It just said now the whole earth had one language and one speech. And when I read that, what came to my mind was, well, what was the last thing? When was the last time that the whole earth was on one consensus? And besides Adam and Eve, it reminded me of what chapter was that we read when God said that he was grieved in his heart because the whole earth was filled with wickedness through men. Do you remember that? Do you remember that? What chapter was that? It should be like a pop quiz. I think that was chapter 6. I think it was chapter 6. It was chapter 6. But so when I read in chapter 11, verse 1, and it said the whole earth had one language, if you look closely at what happens, we're going to read about it, about the Tower of Babel. But if you look at what happened, is it safe to assume, is there a possibility that yes, they're having one language, and yes, they're of one speech, but it never mentioned if this is a good thing or a bad thing. Why are they together? So I'm just gonna I have the biggest grin on my face. I don't know if you can hear that I have a big grin on my face, but I'm telling you that I do. And because I the other day one of my girlfriends and I were talking about the Book of Enoch, and then we were talking about it again in a different space that I share concerning the Bible or reading and studying the Bible. And if you have not had the chance to read the Book of Enoch, I will tell you that you are not alone. I have had access to it for so long, and honestly the whole world does. Just go on Amazon. You can order the doggone thing if you'd like. You can even Google it. Just Google Book of Enoch PDF, and it will pop up. Is that accessible? So the idea that the Bible is not real, or the Bible is not true because there's so many scriptures that we're taking out of it. I mean, come on, you all. We have already been overwhelmed with technology and information. Surely you are not saying that you cannot find something online. I don't know how I got on that segue, but I'm going to leave it there. Drops mic. But no, you can literally just Google it and you find it. Anyhow, in the Book of Enoch, it talks a little bit more about the interactions between the fallen angels from chapter 6 that we talked about and mankind. But it goes into a lot more details. I'm hearing like some kind of pushback. I don't know. It goes into a lot more details. And so I thought to myself, no, I was reading it and I was like comparing what I was reading in the Book of Enoch to what I knew in the Book of Genesis within the first few chapters of creation and fallen angels, things like that. Listen, listen. There's so many fill in the blank moments that when you come down now to Genesis chapter 11 and you're reading about the Tower of Babel, it's kind of like, oh. So that's why I have a big grin on my face to sum that up. Because I don't think that this was a it's a big consensus and everybody is singing kumbaya and everybody is all family and friendly. And we'll hear about it. But let's continue. Let's continue. I'm off on a tangent. So verse 2 said that they journeyed from the east, right? Did you remember where the Garden of Eden was? It was on the east side. So I thought to myself, well, hold on. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east, this is verse 2, that they found a plain. Oh my gosh. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. Then they said to one another, come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly. Oh my gosh. They had brick for stone and they had asphalt for more. Y'all have got to read the Book of Enoch because the Book of Enoch actually breaks down these different entities that was teaching mankind how to manipulate some of the different elements of the world. It was talking about how there was a specific entity that taught mankind astrology, and there was a specific entity that taught them about the herbs and the plants, and there was a specific entity that taught them about building stuff with the earth and all of the different things that we are learning now. So basically, when I was reading that in the Book of Enoch, I thought, oh, so this is the origin. This is the origin of mankind worshiping the creations instead of the creator. This is where it started. When the fallen angels, when the Nephilims were interbreeding and intermingling with mankind and manipulating them along their way and making wickedness be across the earth through mankind, because remember, you are the authority, right? And remember, God said that the earth was filled with wickedness through man because it's you. You are the access point. You're the portal. And so you're the door. But when I read this, and it said that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, the part that really got my attention is when it said they journeyed from the east, meaning they're moving away from the east, meaning they're moving away from the Garden of Eden, meaning they are going even further away from the original blueprint and idea that God had for mankind. But let's keep reading. So in verse 3 to 4, we hear that they say, let's build a tower whose top is in the heavens. Now, why in the world do y'all need to build a doggone tower to go up to heaven? Well, if you read in the Book of Enoch, if you read in the Book of Enoch, there was a part that says that there were watchers. There were 200 watchers up in the heavens looking at the earth like, why are they doing this? And why are they doing that? And why are they doing this? And why are they doing that? And finally they say, send us down there and we'll go down there and teach them the right way and all that good stuff. Remember that Bible study thing that I said that I was going to connect to here and I never did. I apologize in advance, but hey, maybe that is encouragement for you to go find it yourself. It is a pastor. I believe he's from or of Asian descent. And it was a great Bible study. Just look it up. You'll find it for sure. But I as I was reading that, I remembered that Bible study because he was breaking down how the building the Tower of Babel had a lot more to do with who they were trying to reach and what they were trying to attract and what habits they learned through the Nephilims that they were trying to reinforce. Because there was, and you could research this and all that good stuff, but you can research that at one point the people were worshiping false gods, and they believed that the higher they got to heaven was the more likely it was for them to interact with the gods that they created, the false gods. And so they would perform as a part of all different type of rituals. They will have naked women and attractive women. Oh, my mind is going all in different directions because there's a part in the Book of Enoch that says that there was an entity that taught the people how to put on eyeshadow and beautify themselves and all that other stuff. But check this out. Do you remember Do you remember in Ezekiel, in the book of Ezekiel, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but do you remember in the book of Ezekiel when God said that I gave you riches, I gave you treasures, I gave you jewels, and you took them off of you and you offered them up to false God? And then God said, and if that wasn't enough, then you took my children and you offered them as a living sacrifice, as a burnt sacrifice onto those same. Listen, in the book of Enoch, it says how under the influence of the watchers that went awry, the watchers that were doing everything opposite of what God told them to do. In the book of Enoch, it says, God says, I never told you to go down there and have sex with them. I never told you to go down there and manipulate them. Right. Y'all, let me tell you something. Go read the book of Enoch. Because we about to just go into that more than we're doing it right now. But going back into the verse, so when I read that they were going further away from further away from east, I said, wait a minute, they're going further away from the Garden of Eden that's in the east, going further and further away from God, further and further away from the blueprint. And listen to what happens when we do that. So in verse 3-4, it says, let's build a tower whose top is in the heavens. You notice the part that came after? Let's make a name for ourselves, right? And they said, this is verse 4, and they said, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower whose top is in the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves. Lest we be scattered abroad over the face of the whole earth. That's pride. That's pride. That's greed. That's wanting to have control, right? That's a little bit of pleasure seeking. We talked about that. We talked about that at one point. I forget where, but we talked about those three things that's used to tempt us. But anyway, then let's go into 5-6. So God sees a people that they're one. Check me out. So the very first time that I heard this, that the Lord saw that they were one, I want to go to it. Let's go to verse 5. But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the sons of men had built. And the Lord said, indeed, the people are one, and they all have one language. And this is what they began to do. Now, nothing that they propose to do will be withheld from them. Pause right there. Is it possible that when it says God sees the people are one, that is a reference to Nephilims and mankind now blending into one in terms of their influence? Not as if we're no longer humans. Like, I'm not saying that. But just boom. Here's something that might make you understand a lot more. You ever met those couples where it's like, it's your friend, and the more that they're hanging around with their significant other, it's like they kind of blend into one. They start picking up each other's slangs. They start doing stuff that they wouldn't have done before. They start listening to the type of music that their significant other listened to. The other day, I was on lunch. I'm cracking up now. I was on lunch, and I called Babe, and I was leaving my doctor's office visit, and I was just giving him the updates or whatever, and we were talking about a few things that we got planned, and some of our goals and aspirations that we're trying to strive for. And at the end of the conversations, in the middle of it, I was just not prepared. Babe goes, Austin says, babe. I said, yeah. He says, babe. I said, what? He said, we going through it, huh? And I don't know why that cracked me up so much, because that's something that I would say. That's how I talk. Like, oh, we are going through it. And so it was so funny hearing him say that, and it reminded me. So when I'm reading this now, it's just reminding me how sometimes things blend when you're around it long enough. You ever heard that saying that's like, if you're around poop long enough, eventually it stops smelling. Excuse me. I just drank some of my ice thing. If you don't pause, here is a unsolicited advice. If you're trying to cut back on soda or like sweets and all that good stuff, there is a drink called sparkling ice. It's actually water. It's just sparkling water, but it's zero sugar, and they add vitamins and antioxidants. And it's great. It's called sparkling ice. I get it all the time, and it's $1. But anyway, it made me think of that. It made me think of that when in verses 5-6, when God is saying that he sees that people are one, I'm thinking, oh, he's seeing that y'all are so influenced by these entities that I can't even tell y'all apart. And it makes sense because let's go through 7 and 9. First of all, this is the second, starting at verse 7. This is the second reference to God as us. So we heard that in the very beginning. Let us make man in our own likeness and image. So in verse 7, when it says, come, let us go down and there confuse their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. Okay, I'm not going to get into it. But so God scattered their language, right? He confused the language. And by confusing the language, he scattered man. So they no longer understand each other. They no longer understand one another's speech. Hence the reason why it's named Babel, because Babel is where the language was confused. You know, like you're babbling. So Babel, that would be a good way to remember it. You're babbling. But do you realize how significant language is? Do you realize that the people were scattered just by touching the language? I feel like, I don't know, something is coming in my mind. I feel like, man, that your language can scatter. I think that we need to learn to put more emphasis on what we talk about, who we talk about it with, why are we talking about it, when are we going to talk about it, where are we going to talk about it. I just think that there is so much significance in language. Remember when we learned in chapter 10 that language was one of the big um, chords. It was language, generations, and nation, but language. There's something about the ability to communicate. There's something about the ability to have an idea and to express it in such a way that you understand. There's something really special about having a language that you and I can understand. You and I, we can receive and interpret and reciprocate it. And if it's a language, I'm not fluent in French. I don't even know one word. I do know one word in French. No. And we. But I think it's something special about the idea that there can be a couple having a conversation in French and I'm having a conversation with my partner in English. Even if we're talking about the same exact thing, we have no idea what each other are talking about because we don't share the same language. And so wait a minute, y'all, hold on. So when Jesus came, we're getting ahead of ourselves. But when Jesus came, oh my God, when Jesus came and he was teaching us and he spoke in parables, my God, when Jesus came and he was speaking to us in parables, when he was using a language that he knew his people would understand, when he said that his sheep will know his voice, when Jesus was speaking to us in parables, was that our language? Is the undertone of the parables, is the undertone of the stories, is the undertone of the lessons he was teaching us built on the building block that we share the same language? That we can talk God with God? How amazing. You have a God that understands you. You share the same language as God. Oh, wait a minute. And check this out. Even if you don't have the words, even if the only thing that's coming up out of your spirit, out of your soul are groans and tears, God speaks that too. God understands the language. I don't know. I don't know. That just got me. It just got me. That God, he speaks my language. He knows my language. Mm-mm-mm. Anyway, okay, let's keep going. So then 10 to 24, They're giving us the genealogy of Shem again, because we already had that. But they're giving us the genealogy of Shem again, but this time with a little bit more details, right? And I want to go to it 10 through 24 because it goes all the way down until all of a sudden we get to 25. And verse 25 says, after he begot Terah, this is Nahor. I think that's how you say his name. Nahor. Nahor. After he begot Terah, after he had Terah, his son, Nahor lived 119 years and begot sons and daughters. Now Terah lived 70 years. 70. 70. 7. 7. 0. That's God's number, 7. Now Terah lived 70 years and begot Abram, Nahor, and Haran. We don't know Nahor and Haran, most people, but we sure know Abram, right? And then we hear Terah in 25. Let's look at 25 a little bit. So Terah, he's the son of Nahor. He has 3 sons. Do you realize that Nahor is named after his grandpa? Because it's Abraham, Nahor, and Haran. This is verse 26 to 27. Then let's go to 28, because 28 says, now Haran had a lot. Haran had Lot, so that's his son. And then he died. So this is the first, actually, yeah, wait a minute. This is the first incident in the Bible of the child dying before the parent. Is Haran dying after he had Lot. This is the first instance. Everybody else, we don't know if it happened again, but this is the first instance where it's recorded. And I think there's something significant about that. Let's go into it. So 29, we hear that Abram and Nahor took wives. So that's Sarai and Maleah. You'll later know Grandma Sarai as Sarah, but for now she's Sarai. I want to read verse 29. Actually, I'm going to read 29 all the way through. 29 says, this is after Haran died, right? Before his father Terah in his native land in the earth of the Chaldeans. 29 says, then Abram and Nahor took wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai. And the name of Nahor's wife, Milcah. Is it Milcah or Milcah? I'm going to say Milcah. The daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah, and the father of Iscah. But Sarai was barren. She had no child. Why they put her business out like that? But Sarah was barren. She had no child. Milcah was Nahor's niece. Huh. Milcah was Nahor's niece. And it also means that Iscah was a sibling to Lot. So Haran had 2 kids. I don't know, I'm just realizing that. But let's go to 30. So Sarai is barren. She has no children. She doesn't have kids. And then 31, now listen to this. And Terah took his son Abram and his grandson Lot, the son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, and his son Abram's wife. And they went out with them from Ur of the Chaldeans to go to the land of Canaan. And they came to Haran and dwelt there. So the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. Terah moved Abram, Lot, and Sarai with him in the direction of the land of Canaan. But they stopped in the land named Haran, where he died, leaving Abram, Lot, and Sarai. Now, children were signals of virtue in that culture, right? And fertility was the thing that connected them to Eve, the mother of all living, right? So if married, if Abram and Sarai are married, then why not leave Terah's house? Because we hear that Noah also had wives, but we don't hear that he went with them. Why he didn't leave the house? Why was he still with Terah? Was it pressure? Was it shame? If they put it in order, then Abram would have been the eldest son. Is it shame because they don't have, I don't know. But it did not make sense for Abram to be with Terah still. Unless maybe the lack of a child meant that they weren't in fact a family. I don't know. Because the Bible said, remember when we first heard about marriage and the idea of marriage, it was with Uncle Adam and Auntie Eve. And God was the one who brought Eve over to Adam. And then Uncle Adam was like, you my wife. Right? But we don't hear anything about children. Hold on. I think we need to go back. I'm in chapter 4. Now Adam knew Eve, his wife. She conceived and bore Cain and said, I have acquired a man of the Lord. Then she bore again, this time his brother Abel. Abel's a keeper of sheep. Okay, and then they told that whole story. Wait. Oh my God. Oh my God. I just realized something. Do you realize that the first instance of calling anything or anyone a family is when there's children involved? That like Adam and Eve when they got together and God put them together, like they were one, but they weren't. Wait. I don't know. Maybe I'm going down a rabbit hole. I don't know. But that's just something that I find interesting. But I mean, if that theory checks out, then it would make sense why they wouldn't have left yet because they don't have children. So how are you going to continue your family? So you would probably still need to be under the covering because you don't have a family of your own yet. I don't know. I'm making it up. But I think that there's something strange about that. Why are you still in these people's house? You got your wife. Why are you still in these people's house? Well, I'll tell you what, it ain't make sense to God either because in chapter 12, we're finally going to learn how our grandpa Abram was called out by the Lord. I'm excited. Now we're getting ready to like dive into the deep stuff, dive into the real family drama about your ancestors. I love you all. Please continue to read the Bible. I don't think I have anything else to say. Oh yeah, read my book. So we can talk about it because I want to talk about it. I love you all. Be safe. Take care of yourself. Be kind to yourself. Bye-bye.